Are you turning healthy fruits into highly unhealthy fruits without even realizing it? Fruit can be one of the healthiest things you can put into your body, but the majority of Americans are guilty of making this single mistake that can counteract all of the health benefits of fruit. Some fruits can help with occasional constipation, reduce bloating, and even help burn calories. Others can wreak havoc on your digestive system and energy levels. In this viral presentation, world-renowned heart surgeon Dr. Stephen Gundry showcases the 3 fruits to stop eating today. Go to thehealthyfat.com/inspired or click on the link in the description box below to learn the top 3 common foods that are the cause of your fatigue. Eliminating these foods could forever change the way we help increase energy levels, decrease brain fog, support digestion, and even lose weight. This video has been watched by over 20 million people to date, and you can watch and learn more about it at thehealthyfat.com/inspired. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired live stream. It's wonderful to see you all. Welcome in the live chat. Welcome on Rumble. Welcome on YouTube. Welcome later on. Let us know where you're tuning in from when you tune in. And it's good to see you all over there. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. We're also out of lighting. I think some bulbs went out. We got to change that here today in our lighting system, but you can see me just fine, I believe. We're healthy, wealthy, whole, and free, which is the mantra of the Inspired live stream, has been for a very long time. And it's actually a very a very appropriate mantra for today's topic. I want to talk about what is scheduled to happen in May 2024. By the way, that's an official date. That's not something anybody made up. It's not a projection. It's not a prophecy. It's not something that's in some internet forums. There is an event that is scheduled for May 2024 that, if it goes through as planned, and this is this is the buried lead here, it'll constitute the equivalent of the first world government as we know it. And the problem with all these plans, the New World Order, the takeover plans, and everything, is that the way we have imagined it and the way that it's actually playing out is it's very, very different. And the way it's playing out is extremely boring, uninteresting, and that was intentional. They are bringing in their idea of an international body of enforceable laws through the back door, through bureaucrats that you've never heard about, and they're doing it quietly and silently and in the name of health. So we've talked about this on this channel before, but it's a subject that we have a hard time together with a lot of other people getting real traction on, because it's not tanks rolling in, because it's not an open border, because it's not a war scenario. It's a different kind of war. It's a bureaucratic war happening behind closed doors. And what I'm talking about are 2 huge changes to the structure of everything. One is the amendments to the international health regulations as put out by the WHO, the World Health Organization. Every 6, 5, 7, 8, 10 years, however the schedule is, and depending on what they want to change, they make amendments to an existing body of international health regulations. Now, usually you don't hear about it. Your hospitals might start changing things, and your local health department might start changing things. Your schools might start changing things with regards to health policy, but you don't know why or that it had anything to do with the WHO. The international health regulations so far have been a semi-voluntary set of rules that member nations adhere to. The member nations of the WHO, 194 nations are part of the WHO. What is scheduled to happen? One of 2 things that is scheduled to happen in May 2024. They have negotiated this over the past few years. May 2024, they will meet at the 77th Assembly of the World Health Organization, and they will get together behind closed doors and they will say yay or nay on these amendments. There will be no signatures required. There will be no ratification by national governments required. There will be no presidential approval required. Why? First of all, why? Because this is not a new set of rules that is being negotiated, because technically nothing new is being created, but something that's already in place is being altered. And for that, believe it or not, representatives that go and negotiate on behalf of the member nation do not even have to sign anything. It's literally a yay or nay kind of thing. I'm not even kidding you. Yes, we'll do it. So what are they proposing with these international health regulations that I believe will, if it goes through, will create the first effective world government? The changes, and I will point you to where you can read all about it. The changes that they're proposing to make are, first of all, making it from voluntary to mandatory. They are removing human dignity. They are basically removing informed consent. They are adding all kinds of implementations of digital health certificates for travel, inoculation for travel, and for other purposes. They are effectively mandating that in order for you to work, travel, and do other essential things, you will have to have a digital health passport, and you will have to have all these things in there. That's one of the big chunks that is being proposed in these amendments. The kicker is that the World Health Organization, which has its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, you'll never see these people who will be the new government. It gives itself the power to not only declare a state of health emergency, but it gives itself the power to say there might be a health risk coming down the pipe. There might be a risk with regards to the climate coming down the pipe. So we are invoking emergency rights. As soon as they do that, and they don't need signatures for that, they don't need consent for that. After these amendments have been passed in May of 2024, if this comes to pass, they will basically have the power to declare to all 194 member nations a state of emergency or the danger for state of emergency, and enact any rules that they seem necessary to deal with that danger. As I said, lockdowns, travel restrictions, inoculations, other medical procedures, it does not matter. This is what they have. This is through hundreds of amendments. What they are in a boring fashion putting out there. And the reason why people are not paying attention is because it would mean to read through all these amendments, which I have done, by the way. It's horrific. The second thing that they're proposing is a new pandemic treaty. And in the beginning of this discussion, we have mistakenly focused very much on this pandemic treaty, which is kind of like the red herring. It is something that they put out in front of everybody that has less significance and meaning, and also less chance of being really accomplished, because this new pandemic treaty, because it's a new treaty, does require all these hoops to jump through in the national governments and parliaments and whatnot. International health regulations is where it sits. That's where the new world government can be formed. And just so you know, most nations of the world are still in a state of health emergency. Maybe not on the severest level, but they still have some sort of emergency declared, and they can continually declare new emergencies. But this would basically render those declarations by the nations meaningless, because they would be bound by these new amendments in international health regulations to follow the guidance of the WHO, one tiny, it's not a tiny organization, but a tiny body of people sitting in Geneva, Switzerland, dictating to all the member nations how they have to handle things, what they have to do at any given time. Can you imagine how easy it is to think that there's enough of a risk through any health threat that they would declare a permanent state of emergency in order to enact all these draconian rules? The thing is, and why people do not talk about this is, again, it is not sexy. It's not the Chinese invasion. It's not the Russian invasion. It's not this superpower that comes in, and it's not sexy at all to talk about this. It isn't flashy. And it was always meant to happen in a bureaucratic manner that would bore the hell out of people so they wouldn't pay attention. So what are the things that we need to do and should do? Number one, we need to be adults. There is informed consent and there is informed dissent. Informed consent in the medical sense means that in order for you to make an educated medical decision on whether you want a procedure or not, you have to be informed about it, about what it does, what the side effects are, what could possibly happen, what could go good, what could go wrong. That is informed consent. But informed dissent, it's the same, but it is having all the information so you can reject that. And guess what? Informed dissent is not even implied currently in the health regulations. The dissent is not even talked about. And so we need to become educated adults and read through boring pages and gain understanding of what is really happening. Because some representative of your nation that you have never heard of, that you've never met or seen on TV, will go to this assembly in May of 2024, and most likely, as it stands right now, will vote for these amendments by raising their hands and maybe get it right. Maybe they'll be counted as a yay, most likely, because again, there is no official procedure for this. What is interesting to note is that 194 nations, some of which are currently at war with each other, some of which are at economic war or kinetic war with each other, but certainly are in certain fractions and communities like the NATO and other communities, and are literally fighting each other in the world stage. Guess what? There's no fighting in the WHO assembly where they discuss these amendments. Apparently, they're all friends there. They agree with each other, and there are none of these problems. It's kind of like the Antarctica Treaty, right? They all agree on that. They all agree on this too. I heard something about Denmark. I heard something about certain nations. I think, if I remember correctly, I did hear Trump say that if he were to become president again in 2024, I think his plan was to leave the WHO again. I know he did withdraw during 2020. I think that's, if I remember correctly, but basically no one is really talking about this in the bigger sphere. I want to give a tip my hat to Mr. Steve Bannon at War Room, because he really is consistently bringing on James Roguski. And James Roguski is the man, he is a Substack that is freely available to anyone. We put the link in the description here. James Roguski's Substack, his information, his initiatives, his tireless fight here is amazing. And this is about the most comprehensive body of information that he's put together and is every day putting together. By the way, you can email him, you can call him, you can ask how you can get involved. He's got all these toolboxes on there. But the holidays are coming up. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I'm trying to find what are good times for people to talk about these things. The holidays are coming up. If you can get informed before you get together with your family, and I know people don't want to discuss stuff like this around a holiday table, but I think we have to. And rather than kind of, making it political, which it isn't, or making it about party affiliation, which it isn't, I encourage you to use the next few weeks to read James Roguski's Substack. There's many, many articles. There's a lot to read through. He links to all the official documents. He links to everything. And really become an expert on the subject, which you can in 2 weeks, you can. And then find a gentle and good way of asking your relatives, asking your friends when there's more time, maybe around the holidays, if they've heard about this, if they've heard about the changes that they're making to international health regulations. Maybe explain to them what these international health regulations even are and how they affect them now. And then ask them if you've heard that they're making these changes, planning to do them in May of 2024. Don't say it'll be the world government. Don't lead with that. I'm leading with that with you guys because I know you understand. But ask them if they've heard about it. If they haven't, why? And tell them a little bit about what is being proposed. And if you can, and if it comes up, you can quote some things like that it literally would become mandatory, that there is no ratification process, that your national parliament, your president, your representative, your senator, nobody has to sign off on this. There will be no ceremony for this. It'll simply be decided behind closed doors. And ask them whether they want for some anonymous people somewhere in Geneva, Switzerland, to be able to decide what proposes a health risk, and to be able to decide how your nation, your national government, your local government needs to react to that, and whether they should be able to dictate to you when you can travel, where you can go, when you can leave the house, what do you need to put into your body. Ask them these questions. This is the epitome of a technocrat government, expert, data-driven. Of course, what kind of expertise is a whole different question. This is not about ideology. This is not about politics. This is not about left, right, liberal, woke, awakened. This isn't about none of it. This is about very, very practical, boring, bureaucratic stuff that will have unimaginable impacts on your life, like 2020, 21, 22 had. No one could foresee this, but we have learned how big of an impact this can have on everyday life. And guess what? There are multiple layers, and James Roguski talks about this as to what you can do. Number one is information. People cannot make a decision or even form an opinion on anything if they don't have proper information. But then the movement needs to become so big that it is if you're a nation with more parties, we are a nation with more parties. It's only two that are being talked about for the most part. But it needs to be a movement that goes beyond party lines. This needs to be a movement that goes beyond other social issues. No international nebulous, and after the last few years, absolutely, an organization with a now horrible reputation should be able to dictate to the world what they can or cannot do. Who are major sponsors, financial sponsors of the World Health Organization, every member nation, but some of the biggest chunk was always provided by the United States, was always provided by China, and from other organizations by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and their other organizations. So there are some nefarious players at work here. The reason why I think this is so important is because stopping something from happening is much easier than undoing it once it's been done. It can be done. It can always be changed after the fact, but it's much, much harder because there is so much money and an organizational structure that trickles down from these international health regulations. Once they are decided and once they are approved in May of 2024, they will immediately trickle down through all sub-organizations, through all insurance companies, through all health providers in all sectors. And it will create these ripple waves of changes. And once these changes are implemented, that's way more difficult to change back. That's why there are multiple ways that this can be stopped. The easiest way would be for your country to exit the WHO, right? Exit. But then you still have the thing that as soon as you plan on traveling internationally, you will still have to adhere to the rules because other nations will have these rules. So we have to have a brotherly and sisterly movement that is 194 nations big, where we begin talking to each other across borders and say, listen, we might have some disputes about other subjects right now, but here's something that we need to focus around because we have about 5 months left tops to bring an awareness to this, to turn this ship around, and to put such tremendous pressure on anyone who would approve this without your consent, without a fair way to vote on it, without any of it, without any due process, put such pressure on them, put the fear of repercussions, I mean, political and of course, systemical repercussions, not any physical, like don't threaten anyone. We're not threatening people, but we are threatening their political positions, right? We're threatening their ability to stay in powerful positions if they misuse that power. That is what is being threatened. And so there has to be so much pressure put on everyone because this should be a whole of society approach. And ultimately, the government needs to be pressured into a whole of government approach where you go, well, we're gonna have you all removed from your positions if you don't stop this. This should go to everyone. Every governor should do what they can do. Every mayor should do what they can do. Everybody should do what they can do. Say, no, we're not going to have it. And don't be fooled into saying this is so good because only an international approach to a big multinational problem, health problem, can actually yield the results that we need. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's what it is. It's all a facade. This is, through the back door, a world government, and nobody will even know it's there. Nobody will even know it's there. Because things will still seem to go normally as always, but as soon as there's an emergency or a threat to an emergency, there will be rules imposed and nobody will be responsible. You won't be able to go to your mayor or your governor and say, hey, stop this. They will say, well, that's above my pay grade. These are the rules, international rules. And that's what they will all say. On the flip side of this, talk to your sheriff. Sheriff is a constitutional position voted for by the people. Talk to your sheriff. Ask him if he's a constitutional sheriff. Another thing that can be done is preemptive measures. Preemptive measures are, for example, laws that are being passed by a state government or a province government in your nation, where that province says and that state says, we're not allowing for these kinds of scenarios. Some have already said we will. It is a digital central bank digital currencies are not allowed in our state. So there are other ways, right, to go about it. We need to use all of these ways, but the first step is get informed. So please click in the video description. Listen to every interview by James Roguski. We've done a few over in the now. It's still there, but we're not doing anything on it. Inspired Newsroom, I believe we've done some, and we will link to them later. But there's so much about him out there. Go to stopthewho.com or James Roguski. Again, links in the video description. And do yourselves and your children, grandchildren, and everybody else a favor. Get really good, well informed on this. This is one of those practical, important things that we need to do, that we need to take care of, that we need to make sure never goes through. Never goes through. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. I encourage you, please share this. Please share all of these videos and interviews, because my way of talking, my voice, my style might not resonate with everybody, but maybe another voice will. Maybe James' voice will, or someone else's voice. It doesn't matter, as long as people pay attention to this. And I repeat, everybody needs to pay attention to this and band together on this. Liberal, conservative, libertarian, non-political, doesn't matter. Everybody needs to get on the same page for this and say, no, we're not going to have it. All right. Much love. Many blessings. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon.